Welcome, everybody, and Hare Krishna for another session of Prabhupada Memoirs. And I am so thrilled that I have His Holiness Chandramuli Swami Maharaj with us here today. And for those that may not know Maharaj, His Holiness Chandramuli Swami Maharaj is a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada and an initiating spiritual master in our ISKCON movement. He came into contact with Krishna consciousness in Denver, Colorado at the age of 24. And in the early 1980s, he became involved in the ISKCON prison ministry in the USA and began visiting prisoners and holding programs in jails, along with regular writing letters to them, to the inmates, and then sending them to Srila Prabhupada's books. And of course, he's been doing this tirelessly since then. And currently, he's based in Slovenia. And at present, he's offering spiritual guidance around Europe, USA, and India. And on the back of all this, Maharaj is also an amazing writer from his experiences that he has got through the years, where he's created a book called The Holy Jail, especially with the prison service, and another book, which you can see on the top about the inner voices, which we'll be talking about as well later on. So, Maharaj, thank you so much for joining us today. And how are you?
Fine, thank you. It's nice to be with you. And everybody else who is out there in virtual land.
Yes, we have about from the different platforms at the moment, and they keep on joining, about over 250 people on. So thank you so much for joining. And as we get into this is about Prabhupada's memoirs, hearing directly from the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So please, any questions you have that you would like to ask His Holiness Chandramuli Swami Maharaj, then please do message them. I can try and look in the chat box, and then at a certain times, we will try and bring those questions up as well. So to get started, if I may, so 24, you started and you got in contact with Krishna consciousness. How did that come about, Chandramuli Maharaj? How did that happen?
Wow, going back 40, almost 47 years, it's been a little blurry. But I met somehow or other in my travels before I became a devotee. I wound up in a place called Denver, Colorado, looking for spiritual direction at that time, having heard from others that a place called Boulder, Colorado, which is a city about 1 hour away by car from Denver, was sort of a mecca of spiritual ashrams from personalities who had came from India. So I started to investigate a little bit in that area, and then by Krishna's arrangement, I happened to meet the devotees and wound up coming to the program in the Denver, Colorado temple.
Wow. So that's how it all started. And, 24, it's still, I know a lot of people, they start their Krishna conscious life a bit later on in life. And so 24, maybe in those days, but nowadays, I think it's quite a young time to really just get into it. And you then the next stages were that you went to New Vrindavan, if I'm correct, from there, and did some services.
Actually, I wound up in the New York temple, the Brooklyn temple, the famous Henry Street temple, which has so many memories of Srila Prabhupada. That was right after meeting the devotees in Denver, because I'm from the East Coast. I was from the area of New Jersey. So I returned to that area, and then still having some connection with the devotees, with the process, I started to visit the temple in New York.
Oh, I see. So that's how it then started to gain momentum in your spiritual life, I gather.
And then I happened to meet one personality who is also a very senior devotee in our movement, and spiritual master, and that was Devamrita Swami.
Yes.
He was also attending the Brooklyn temple, so we became somewhat friends. And due to our interaction, he sort of mentioned that there was a farm community, a rural community, in a place called West Virginia. So I became a little curious. And during one Sunday feast lecture, I came in contact with the temple president at the time, who was Kuladri Prabhu. And we talked, and I liked the idea of trying New Vrindavan, so I wound up going.
So the city life was not should we say the urban style, the rural style was calling you. Is that what it was? And then you thought,
Yeah, actually, that's actually correct. I wasn't so much inspired to practice spiritual life in the cities. I thought of more of a natural, rural setting would be more, pleasing and easier for me to practice spiritual life. Of course, I didn't know what I was getting into at the time. It was just when we wound up getting there, it was just working from morning till night, doing various chores. But it was, that was the inspiration, is to move away from the cities.
wow. And we hear from speaking to some of the other Prabhupada disciples that it was a very quick process. It wasn't like, okay, I've come in contact with devotees, then 5 years or 6 years later, we move into a temple, we start doing service. It was quite quick, wasn't it? This time frame from Denver, Colorado, then you went to New York. From New York, you went to New Vrindavan. What was that time span?
That was actually very quick. My actual connection in Denver was in the later part of 1972. And then I wound up in New Vrindavan in March of 1973. Right. So spending a couple months in New York prior to that. And then I was in West Virginia. I was a farm boy, you might say.
So now we're coming to 1973, because that's also when you were initiated at that time as well, if I'm correct.
It was in September of the same year. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And then is that the first time you met Srila Prabhupada? Or did you see him before?
No, my first encounter with Srila Prabhupada was in 1974, when he had come to New Vrindavan for a meeting with all the leaders. They chose New Vrindavan as a place to meet, and the leaders from the different temples, different yatras around America came to see Srila Prabhupada, and there was a 2 or 3 day festival where Prabhupada was there, gave classes, and mostly met with his leaders and trying to inspire them in their service. They were given reports like that. So, of course, at that time, all I did was able to see Prabhupada. It was nothing more than that. And I didn't have any personal interaction in 1974. It wasn't until actually 1976 when Prabhupada came the second time to New Vrindavan, or not the second time, but another time, was when I actually was able to do some service for Prabhupada.
And that service, I if I am correct, is this the Pera story?
Well, that's how it's labeled. Yeah, it's called the Pera story. But because I was a cook at the time.
Okay.
Right. And we were up in one of the areas of New Vrindavan. We had 3 small farms, one bigger farm and 2 smaller farms, which were different areas of the New Vrindavan community. So the most distant place away from the main farm was a place called Vrindavan, which was about 2 miles through the woods, over streams, up hills, and wound up in this area. And there was a little shack there. Prabhupada had come there actually in 1968, the first time when New Vrindavan first began. And then again in 1969, Prabhupada stayed there for actually a month in the same place that we made that our temple in our ashram. It was only one building at the time. And then later on, there was a few houses constructed around the area. But that's where I was staying at the time when I was the cook, you might say. It's the word cook was kind of used quite loosely because I didn't know how to cook. It was just somebody, they gave me their service and said, "This is your service." So
Wow. So
I
you were
was on the job training.
farmer, you turn into a farmer, you turn into a cook, and it was all on the job.
Yeah, and I lived all my life in the cities. So
Wow, what a transformation. So you like, before we go into the that pastime with Srila Prabhupada, you just mentioned, you weren't a cook and you were put into this service. How did that feel? And how did you able to, because then I'm sure there's budding cooks out there right now that may not know where to start. There's students going to university, there's people from all over the world that might want to know, is like, wow, from that then suddenly you put into this, like, you're not just cooking for yourself but you're cooking for others as well. So how did that feel, and how did you able to learn?
well, I guess the atmosphere was very supportive in the sense that there was a lot of enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness, and everything was focused on serving Srila Prabhupada by serving his mission. And so for us, of course, the mission was narrowed to where we were, and that was serving the deities. So the community leader at the time, Kirtanananda Swami, put a lot of emphasis on deity worship, making the deities the center of the community and providing as much what we say simple opulence we were able to provide at the time, because there wasn't much wealth in the community. It was quite, in fact, we had no sources of income other than when devotees would come, they would give a little bit of their donations, the money that they brought with them. So the community didn't have much support, but the deities became the main focus. And so being up into the Brahmachari ashram, we had a set of deities named Sri Sri Radha Vrindavan Nath. The main deities, of course, were Radha Vrindavan Chandra, and then there was another set of deities called Radha Madhava. Radha Vrindavan Chandra were beautiful, beautiful marble deities, full size. And Radha Vrindavan Nath and Radha Madhava were smaller brass deities. And today you can go to New Vrindavan, you can see all three of those deities are on the main altar there.
There you go. If anybody online has been there, comment with a thumbs up or a yes, so we just know who has been, who hasn't, and it'll be lovely to see who has. And also, any questions you have about what you're hearing, please message in the group. And I've seen somebody putting their hands together. So Satya Sundar Dutta has. So thank you. So like that. So Maharaj, yourself with the cooking itself, starting that service and doing what you've done. And then, of course, that opportunity came to serve Srila Prabhupada. But I gather some were going to the airport and some were staying back. And I gather one of you was yourself. And how was that situation? Can you paint the picture? Srila Prabhupada's coming. And
well, this was quite a scenario, in the sense that there was a lot of enthusiasm to somehow or other be the person to go with Kirtananda Swami to meet Srila Prabhupada at the airport. And that became my desire also. I wanted to go. Of course, I was thinking it probably impossible, but still I was hoping against hope, because my service was to stay in the kitchen. And practically I was the only cook. So it wasn't like we had an entourage of cooks. At that time, Prabhupada's palace was being built, so most of the manpower was directed towards constructing the palace. So there was only a few of us. Radhanath Swami, he was Radhanath Brahmachari at the time, who was the pujari, and we had one devotee who would cut the wood, because everything was done by wood then. Our cooking, our heating, everything was done by wood. And I was the cook. So the three of us would be there throughout the day, and then the devotees would leave. The brahmacharis would leave after breakfast to go to build Prabhupada's palace, and then they would come back in the evening. So I was there practically alone. Well, of course, I had the wonderful association of Radhanath Swami during that time, and we would always take lunch together like that. So that was something that we had every day. So my cooking service was pretty much just maintaining the offerings for the deities throughout the day, and of course we cooked breakfast for the devotees in the morning, but that was all. And somehow or other, I can't even recall, but I was either inspired to or came up with the idea to learn how to cook milk sweets. So that became my focus. And so someone mentioned about para, so I decided to learn that. So I focused on that as my main milk sweet, and so I was cooking para for the deities every day. And we always had a supply of para waiting to be offered to the deities. It was a regular offering like that. So when the opportunity came to go see Prabhupada, I was told, no, you'd have to stay back and maintain the kitchen. But we want devotees who could cook, because they had other devotees who were cooking at the other farms, to cook for Srila Prabhupada and make various types of preparations, which would be taken to Prabhupada at the airport. So I was asked to do para.
You're expert in it now. You're making it all the time.
It's been quite a while. And so, so I stayed back and tried to cook some para for Prabhupada. But somehow or other, and this is a little personal, but I became a little bit emotionally disturbed by the fact that I wasn't able to come to see Prabhupada, in the sense that I wanted to go, but I couldn't go. And it was something that was on my mind all the time when I was cooking the para. And I was also listening to a beautiful bhajan, Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Burjami, the Brahma Samhita prayers, sung by a wonderful devotee named Bhardaraj. Bhardaraj was expert musician, expert singer. And I was listening to his chanting of the Brahma Samhita prayers, at the same time trying to cook para, and at the same time lamenting my situation. And so according to my estimation, the results of the cooking didn't come out. I looked at it, I said, oh no. And I said, this is not going to be offered to Prabhupada. The quality is not right. Previously, I was under the impression that para should be light in color, but this one came out dark. And instead of the texture was different. It was more like sticky rather than smooth. So I thought, all right, what I'll do is I had some para that I had made for the deities that were ready to be offered. I'll put those aside, and when they come, I'll give them those para for Prabhupada. But Krishna had another plan. And this plan was quite, what to say, inconceivable. Is that I had not been in the kitchen when the devotees came around to collect the sweets to be given to Kirtananda Swami. So it was Radhanath Brahmachari, Radhanath Maharaj now, who came into the kitchen looking for the para, looking for me, but couldn't find it. And there was no, they had to have it then, so they were leaving. So, and Maharaj just recently told me this, and just it was just about a month ago, maybe a little bit more. He said, I always thought, from his words, that para should be dark. And I always thought, myself, that para should be light. So when he saw the dark para, he took that.
Oh, I see.
Which was the one that was, I thought, wasn't offerable to Prabhupada. And so he took that one, and then they left. When I came back, I was cursing my fate, thinking Prabhupada's going to say, "What a nonsense! Get this guy out of the kitchen," So, but then again, the next day when Kirtananda Swami returned, he was quite besides himself in happiness, and he wanted to relate it to me. He said, I saw Prabhupada do something he never does, or never did what I saw. He ate 3 of your para, one after another.
3, not 1, but 3.
3 in a row. And I didn't really know how to react to that, but I just felt like I was blessed, really blessed, like that. So somehow or other, by the mercy of Radhanath Swami, Prabhupada got the para that I intended to cook for him. So, and that's how the whole story unfolded. So after that, I felt really fortunate that somehow Prabhupada liked what I tried to prepare.
It's such a nice way that story happened, and not just 1 but 3. So you must have liked it.
Yeah, and that's why Kirtananda Swami was so incredulous. He said, I never saw Prabhupada do that before. Take 3 of one thing in a row like that. So that really kind of highlighted the whole, event.
We had a really nice comment come in just now. Lalita Nangi Radha Devi Dasi, cooked, soaked in genuine devotion, she says. So thank you for that comment. And you can definitely hear, as Chandramuli Swami Maharaj is talking there, that number one, he was not a cook at the start. He was not a farmer, and he was put into this, and it was the encouragement of the devotees that helped him to do this. And that's it. I think that's a very nice point as well, Chandramuli Maharaj, that there's a saying, isn't there, that when a true friend or true person will believe in your capabilities more than you believe in yourself, and that's how we can move forward. And like here, you had that loving relationships around that helped you to do this. And even the peras, Srila Prabhupada had 3 peras, not just 1, and I'm sure they were sugary as well. So it's amazing to see this. So just on this side, what would you say to those devotees right now that may be feeling, oh no, that service may be too hard, or this service is like that? What's the takeaway message that you would like to give to them?
Well, one thing I can reflect on, and which was quite a regular thing in the early days of Krishna consciousness, at least when Prabhupada was here, a lot of services were emergency services. So it was never like if a person had a qualification or had a desire to do it, if someone was available, a lot of times that service was given to them. So a lot of the experiences we had in doing services was learning the service as we were doing the service. And that became a necessity a lot of times because it wasn't about qualifications, it was about the need at the time. And of course, that's not always perfect because sometimes people could not come up to the standards or even perform the service. But it was just the way it was in those days.
So
I think we've gotten away from that a little bit now.
It's because of, you know, the generation like of yourselves have helped in creating that solid foundation that we don't have to think about sinking in the sands or in the mud. You know, you've built that for us. It feels like, from, like you said, the necessity was there. It's like whatever was needed to be done, you would do,
Right.
and now it's come to a stage where devotees can now, in a way, choose what they would like to get involved in service and how they would like to serve. When those days, it was a necessity. We had to do these things. There's no ifs or buts, but the loving community was what made it built. So yes, I definitely see where you're coming from, and that's why it's so nice to talk directly to disciples of Srila Prabhupada and hear about those struggles of how it was, because it wasn't plain sailing. But because of what all of you have done, we can do what we can do now and hopefully serve a little more in any little capacity we can. So, and like Simita said, like the tagline of this place, no service is big or small. Serve your spiritual master with love and devotion. So the title of this was No Service is Too Big or Small. So please, everyone, remember that. And I just want to now bring on to, that's not where you just stopped. You've been doing so many other services in this mission, and one of them notably has to be to do with helping, showing that compassionate light to prisoners and going into prisons and helping them. Can I ask, how did that come about? How did that happen? And then you thought, because after that, I know in UK as well, this is something big, and different parts of the world, they are doing this. But you were pioneering this at such an early time.
I can't actually take any credit in that regard, in the sense that the pioneer was done by one of my godbrothers, who inspired me to get involved. And he was the one that first started it. Of course, if we go back in history, we find that it was Srila Prabhupada was the original prison preacher in 1962, even before Prabhupada came to America. He came to the Tihar jail in Delhi and gave a talk. And there's a record there. There's actually a letter that Prabhupada wrote to the jailer, Mr. Puri, explaining how he felt that this is a wonderful way to reach people with Krishna consciousness. This audience is perfect. So that was Prabhupada in 1962, and Prabhupada again, Lokanath Swami Maharaj also went with Prabhupada, I believe, in 1972, again in India. I'm not sure of the particular jail they went to. It might have been the same place. But so Prabhupada was the first person, at least we can say, within our society to do prison preaching.
Wow. So there you go. So it's 1962. This is when it's the first taste of it. And so this naturally for you, what was your inclination into getting into this?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, there was a godbrother. His name was Chandrasekhar, and he's still very active in prison preaching now. And he was writing letters on the average of 20 letters a day to inmates. And then he got very much inspired. In fact, he started a whole series of writing the heads of the penal institutions if he could send Srila Prabhupada's books in. And he got some, very little response, but he built on that, and then gradually he started developing a clientele with inmates where they were writing letters regularly and sending in books. So in our New Vrindavan community, we had a situation where one of our devotees wound up in jail, in the local jail. So I started to go as part of a group of devotees to visit him. And that was my first experience with going in jails. And at the same time, I had connected with Chandrasekhar Prabhu, and he inspired me to join the letter writing team to take up some of the letters that he was writing. So then, after experiencing going into jails, it just started to snowball from then. I found myself doing more and more correspondence with inmates and then making arrangements to visit some of them. A lot of the visits weren't programs, but they were just visits where I would meet the inmate and we would just, talk about Krishna consciousness, find out a little bit about their personal life. And that's how everything developed with me. That was in the 90s. And then later on, it just started to increase more and more. But the main part of our prison preaching, and it's always been and still is sending Srila Prabhupada's books into jails. And so that's increasing all around the world now in different places.
Wow. So these, what book do you usually send? If you're seeing somebody which book is between the prison inmates that you found, that is the book that seems to be the one that connects with them most?
Well, we found that, what was it? What was this one thick paperback book called? It slips my mind now. It's about 350 pages. Oh, I can't remember the name of the book. It's a simple title, but I can't remember it.
Science of Self-Realization?
You got it.
Yes.
The Science of Self-Realization. So we found that book was a book that really attracted the inmates. And there was a lot of, dialogue in the book, like Prabhupada talking with other people back and forth, and a lot of philosophy also. And nicely written, easy to read, and a lot of material to work with. And then from there, after they became a little interested, we started sending in Bhagavad Gita. That became the main book after that.
Wow. So that's how so everybody out there, Science of Self-Realization, check it out. If you haven't checked it out, it is something I personally find it's one of the ones that really connected with myself as well. So when you said that number of pages, I was like, okay, got an idea now. But so with this service it's been going on since the 1980s, you've been doing the prison services. Is there any, because it's been going on for some time now, what is that inspiration that keeps you motivated to carry on? Was it something by Prabhupada? What is it?
Well, the motivation, aside from the idea of reaching out to others with Krishna consciousness, is just how much these inmates really appreciate Krishna consciousness. Although they can't really practice fully, somehow or other, many of them, they just embrace the philosophy completely. And then also the chanting. So around the world, there are, I would say, thousands of inmates now who are chanting the holy names and regularly reading Prabhupada's books. And some of them are very active in trying to spread Krishna consciousness within the jails.
Wow.
And we have so many amazing experiences coming from them. And also personal experiences that I have when I visited the jails, because we've done programs in the jails also.
and saying that, Lalita Nangi Radha Devidasi is asking, can you share any particular story of an inmate becoming a devotee? Or
Oh, there's many, but one that's outstanding in my mind, which is kind of a landmark story. We are preaching in one country, which I cannot mention because we're not allowed to be in that country. And one of our um, devotees happened to get a position as a Hindu chaplain in a particular jail in that country. And so he was there, and he was trying to, give Bhagavad Gita classes and bring inmates in. So one day he asked the head jailer if there was any person of the Hindu origin who would be interested in coming to his Bhagavad Gita classes. So they said, well, we'll see. And after some time, they responded back by saying, there is one man. He is actually on death row. He's due to be executed soon. And so we'll ask him to come. And so he came. And he came and wasn't so interested at first, but then he somehow or other started listening to the classes and lectures, talks, discussions, and his interest really peaked fast. I should mention, prior to that, he was in denial about the crime that he was accused of, and along with blaming other persons for his situation. His parents could not even talk to him because when they would come, he would always complain about others. After coming for a few months, actually it was actually less than a few months, maybe a couple of months, he changed, completely changed. Started to really appreciate Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's words, started regularly learning the verses, and became practically the most enthusiastic person in the group. So much so that now he admitted that, yes, I did the crime. And he became somewhat remorseful and repentant. And his whole demeanor, attitude completely changed. After some time, that time for his execution came very close. And so just before then, he had asked the jailers, when you take me away, can I keep a copy of the Bhagavad Gita with me? And he told the devotees, he said, I want to become a devotee of Krishna in my next life. So now, of course, he's lost his fear of being executed. He's just thinking that soon I'll get a new body and I'll be a devotee of Krishna in my next life. He was expressing this. And so when they were taking him away for his execution, he was walking along with the jailers, and and he was waving goodbye to his friends who were in some of the cells as he was passing. And he was saying, I'm going to be a devotee of Krishna in my next life. Of course, he went to his execution with the Bhagavad Gita in his hand, and the jailers came back to the devotee, the Hindu chaplain, said, what did you do to him? We never saw anything like that. He wasn't at all resistant. He says, when we're taking a person away, we have to drag them. But this person, he was just walking. And so they were amazed to see the transformation in him. And they were curious to see how he became transformed.
wow.
So this is an amazing story, how a person went from one extreme to another simply by coming in contact with the devotee and the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And Paul Pitts is saying, all glories to you, Chandramuli Swami Maharaj. I was also involved in this service a few years back from both sides with Chandrasekhar Prabhu. This is an amazing service. ISKCON prison ministry is still there, I believe. Anyway, thank you for your kind service. I have also been to Vrindavan, so thank you for letting
Hare
us know.
Krishna, thank
Thank
you.
you, Paul. It's really kind of you, and I've just had, and so people are really being touched by that. You know, you're just showing the power of the holy name, the power of Srila Prabhupada, his books, and how it can transform someone's life. This is, you're hearing it, you know, I'm hearing this for the first time, everybody. And it's transformational what you're doing, Chandramuli Maharaj and the team. And so thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah, there's many devotees around the world who are actively engaged in prison preaching. And we have two wonderful, amazing, dedicated devotees in the UK
mm-hmm.
that are bringing Prabhupada's books everywhere to jails in the UK. Just before this lockdown with the COVID happened, I was in London prior to that, and we were doing regular jail programs, going in, meeting the inmates, giving classes, and bringing books into the libraries. It was just, I could say, phenomenal, the success we were having. The different jails were opening up, welcoming us with the books, and every time we had a captivated audience of at least anywhere from 6 to 12 inmates for our program.
Oh, wow. And just on that, Chudamani Dasi is saying here, Hare Krishna Maharaj has book club reading with interactive sessions in prison preaching been implemented, especially for young offenders. So there seems to be that's happening right now. That's what it sounds like.
Mhm. A book club reading, that means something that is organized through a book club.
So like I think she's like just all getting together. They're reading. They're doing maybe systematic reading of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, that's happening in different places. Right now, around the world, America has the most inmates practicing Krishna consciousness. And of course, I've been preaching in Slovenia and Croatia. And we were doing programs for the last 5-6 years here. We were able to get all of Srila Prabhupada's books into all the jails in Croatia. All the books that had been translated into the local language, which were many.
Wow.
So that was done by a wonderful devotee named Mahasimha, who worked very hard and had some connection with one of the ministers who gave permission. And the result was we got Prabhupada's books into all the prison libraries in Croatia.
Wow. This is
So
mind blowing. And actually, for everybody out there, if you want to get, a copy, there's a book being released by Maharaj some time back, and it's called Holy Jail, and you can get it on Amazon. And also, there's a website as well called www.holyjail.com. If you want to know more information, go check out that website. It has all the information you need on there, and yeah, it sounds like a really interesting read as well. So thank you for compiling this and helping others to understand the jail situation, which is great. And also, if you want to know more about what Chandramuli Maharaj is doing, he's got his website as well, www.cmswami.com. So check that out as well. So, Maharaj, I want to come on to, now yourself. And we're aware that COVID has been around and everyone, and of course, we're so thankful that you are feeling. How are you feeling right now? Are you, it's really great that you're talking to us. And that when we heard, we're like, yes, we'll speak to Chandramuli Swami Maharaj. Oh, but he needs to recover, and then suddenly we got a response to say, yes, Maharaj, you're speaking. Then we realize you're speaking every day. You're online, you're on Zoom, and you're doing so. It was just so inspiring to hear. And we're just wondering, how are you at the moment? How are you recovering?
Well, I guess by the prayers of the devotees, Krishna's mercy has allowed me to keep my strength up where I can continue on my services. I'm not what you could say, in the best situation in terms of health, but it's not something that is causing me to, give up my activities. I'm okay. There's points of being tired, but other than that, that's fine. I'm fine. By Krishna's mercy, devotees' prayers, actually.
Wow. No, it's very inspiring, and praying, we're all praying that you completely recover and take this exponentially with the prison service and what you're doing, all these services, because Europe is a place now that you're quite regular at. Of course, we've seen you in the UK. I remember you coming a few times down for our 24-hour kirtan in Birmingham, then also for Manchester, in ISKCON Manchester held kirtans over there, and you coming down and gracing us with your presence. So now at the moment you're in, I believe you were saying Slovenia, if I'm right.
Yeah, the capital, Ljubljana. Mm-hmm.
And so what's, of course we got locked down and it's happening, but how are you now, because I said about Zooms, but how are you reaching out to individuals, and also with the prison services, etc.? How's that happening at the moment?
Well, with regular programs, I do a program every day at 1 o'clock UK time, and to mostly disciples and a few others. And then throughout the week, I do a program with the devotees in Charlotte, North Carolina, and now also in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So others are coming forward and asking for, classes. So giving classes on different subjects, mostly Srimad Bhagavatam, like that.
Mm.
So staying busy.
You certainly are. And one person called Shamarani Devidasi said, Guru Maharaj's preaching is ongoing non-stop despite being unwell. All glories to your wonderful service, dear Gurudev. So I put that out. So thank you so much. And I think now, like we've heard about Srila Prabhupada, we've heard about the prison service, we've heard about your right now your situation and how you're still preaching out there. And we're coming towards the end of our session soon. So if there's any questions, please do bring them out. And as we've been going along, we've been trying to pick up some of those questions. So can I ask, in these situations we're in right now, to the devotees that are listening right now, and this is now being streamed on multiple channels. One is Lokanath Swami Maharaj's channel, one is Jayapataka Swami Maharaj's channel. We've got Mayapur TV and the different channels, Bhagavad Gita channel, and some of the channels I have. And on that, for those audiences, is there any advice, especially in this time right now, of some places going in lockdown, some are, uncertain about the future, and how they may be able to try to, should we say, carve a path forward?
I think, every situation that we find ourselves, there's always opportunities to increase our Krishna consciousness and also increase our service. So here I find that preaching is, of course, it's online. And I'm also giving classes at the temple because I'm about 2 doors away from the temple. So
Okay.
occasionally I give evening Bhagavad Gita classes at the temple. But it's a great time for reading, for studying, for chanting, and for preaching. Not having to travel has given me, and I think maybe the devotees in general can also understand this, more time to go into their own personal life and put more concentration on hearing and chanting, and also reaching out to others. Uh, there's a blessing with not traveling, because traveling takes up so much time, so much energy, so much expense. So with that, all that wiped away, I found it more time for focusing on reading, chanting, and taking the opportunity to preach.
Yes. And on that, Sri Devi Dasi is asked, of all the ways to spread Krishna consciousness, what's the best and most effective way? Nirai.
Well, of course, just speaking what Prabhupada said book distribution remains the foremost way to spread Krishna consciousness. That may not always be as easy as it was, but we can still do it through the media, online, making Prabhupada's books available and through different venues. And devotees are doing that in certain areas. And of course, inspiring people to chant the holy names. Nowadays, I think from my experience, which is not so much out there, people are more open to some kind of solution or some kind of situation that will get them out of their present struggles with this, because the things are actually becoming more and more restrictive all around the world now, and people's lives are being pushed into a more of a struggle to maintain. And so people, I think, need something that they can, find some happiness or some solace in. So preaching the holy names, the glories of the holy name, I think remains very much foremost. And I think there were some devotees are out there and meeting people and giving the holy names at different places. So that's going on. And there's also programs online where devotees are having kirtan programs, japa sessions, Srimad Bhagavatam discussions. I found that that's been on the increase from my experience with devotees, that there's a lot more groups are starting to formulate, where they're discussing Srila Prabhupada's books and reading together, chanting together, like that. So, and that's where we get our spiritual Shakti from, hearing and chanting.
No, thank you. So there you have it. And I also just want to bring up, because you got a new book recently come out as well called Forbidden Voices, and which is also everybody available on Amazon. You can, at the top where Maharaj is sitting, I've just changed the picture. You'll see it. That's what it looks like. Can I ask about this book? So the other one was Holy Jail, but now Forbidden Voices. Because I was looking through and I was like, oh, this is a nice book. What's this about? Let me ask Maharaj. So I thought I'll ask you.
There's a slight difference in presentation, although both subjects are the same, and that is prison preaching. The first book is broad. It has the history, it has a lot of personal stories coming from devotees. It has accounts of prison preaching programs. It's more all-encompassing with all aspects of prison preaching from the inside and the outside. That's the first book. The second book, Forbidden Voices, is really focused on the inmates. It's from the inside out. So it's their realizations, their essays they write. Their glorifications of Srila Prabhupada, poetry, artwork. There's a whole section of artwork that's included in the book. So the second book is kind of giving emphasis on hearing from the inmates, like that. So that's the focus on the second book. So,
Fantastic. And you can get everybody. You can get this at Amazon.com. Check out Amazon. Put the name of the book in, and that's where you can get these. So please do check them out.
yeah, and if there is any difficulties in attaining the books, they can write to me, and I'll arrange for devotees to receive the books.
So on that basis, we have your website, which is here. So I gather there's a contact section in there. So is that the best way to contact you, Maharaj?
Well, I guess that's one way, but I'm not so much on the website. I think a personal email would be the best.
Excellent. And that email address, if you don't mind, then I can put it up for everybody. Is that...
Yeah, it's my name, Chandramuli, but not Swami, just Chandramuli.
Yeah.
Chandramuli 586 at gmail.com.
Gmail.com, and it's coming up right now, everybody. So it's ready for. There we go.
Yeah.
So, Chandramuli 586 at gmail.com. So if you want to know more, or you want to know where you can get it from, if you can't get it from Amazon, then His Holiness Chandramuli Swami Maharaj will able to assist that. So what a nice excuse to even just give you a contact. You have it now. So thank you for setting that up. And also, Maharaj, did you know, because of Kartik, we've got His Holiness Lokanath Swami Maharaj and the Padayatra Ministry. They've, like you're talking about, because, to preach out there and to help even devotees in these times of this COVID, because of the Padayatra the Vraj Mandala cannot happen in person. They've created an app that you can now join as virtually. So every day it's been going on, and I just wanted everybody out there that this, if you want to get involved, this is the annual 34th Vraj Mandal Parikram. So just go to to register. This is www.bit.ly/online VMP. And when you do that, you will get all the information. It's not too late, but you must do each session at a time. It won't unlock the others until you've done the first one. So it's like being there actually, and you got to go via the actual parikram etiquette, where you go to one place to another. You cannot skip. So it's going to be amazing. So Maharaj, this is happening right now as well. So I just wanted everybody out there to know. And finally, Maharaj, thank you so much for your time. Like you said, you're recovering. You've got all this going on. You have so much correspondence happening, but you made time to come on. So from the ISKCON Mayapur and the Mayapur TV team, and personally from myself, I just want to say thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. And we look forward to hopefully having you on again at some point, if that's okay with you.
Thank you very much. It was a great honor and a privilege to be able to be here and have an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Stay safe.